Hi, I'm Nam Tran. I am from the School of Science, Engineering, Technology. I'm currently in my second / approaching third year of PhD. So that's around the mid-candidature stage. And I'm also the president of the Swinburne Postgrad Research Association, or formerly PhD Club.
Hi, my name is Andrea Fenton and I'm from the School of Business, Law and Entrepreneurship. And I have recently completed my PhD. I've handed in the thesis and I'm just under that examination process. So feeling a little bit relaxed, but still nervously awaiting the outcome.
Hi, my name's Maria Buttery. I'm with the School of Business, Law and Entrepreneurship, and I am heading towards my mid-candidature review sometime early next year.
I'm Ada Puyen Hong. I'm from School of Engineering. I graduated in 2020. Currently, I'm employed in Swinburne as a postdoctoral research fellow.
Excellent. My name is Alan Bisalis. I did my PhD from Swinburne's Faculty of Business and Law within the School of Business, Technology and Entrepreneurship. It took me, full-time, it took me 3.5 years to complete. That said, I did dabble with going part-time in the beginning and decided I wasn't making enough progress, so I came on full-time.
What advice? So my name's Charlotte Marshall and I'm from the School of Health Sciences at Swinburne University of Technology.
Okay. So I actually had 4 supervisors. I had 3 supervisors from Swinburne and 1 who was an external industry expert. So the 3 supervisors from Swinburne were the ones that I met with, more regularly, and the external one sort of provided support when I needed it, or would comment on the industry experience. So for the weekly or the Swinburne supervisors, though, because I did sort of have the pandemic in the middle of it and everyone was working from home, the challenge was, I guess, for me to try and meet with them. And it was challenging. They had 3 different skill sets. So I guess for me, I had to recognise maybe I can't meet with them all together weekly, which would be ideal. So, maybe I would just try to focus on their area of expertise and say, okay, well, I've got Supervisor X this week, then I'll focus on that and, get their advice on that and then work on that. So, obviously there were times when we could all meet together, but because of the pandemic, that was a little bit, different to how it might normally look. And I guess you have to sort of be proactive in that way and just work with the supervisors as best you can and, try to just make time when they have time, I guess is the best way to say it.
My PhD absolutely accelerated once I started to take charge of my meetings. And I set up a recurring fortnightly meeting with my supervisors. I would set up the agenda. I would take the notes. I would set the follow-ups. I did absolutely everything. It was like I was the project manager and they were my team, not the other way around. In the beginning, it can seem quite intimidating. And of course, you're in awe of their experience and their expertise, and you're sort of fumbling your way through. And you might struggle with doing that initially, but I think even though it'll be harder, I think you and they will eventually appreciate it.
I have a few supervisors. So what I find is that I use each of them with their different skills for different parts of my project. So if I'm doing my systematic review with one of my supervisors, I'm potentially doing the quality assessment with another supervisor as well, because then it means that they've got that they can manage their time and it's not all on one supervisor. And then as a group, when we do meet as a big team meeting, we always have all of them there and we talk to all of them and sort of nut out any conflicts or any conflicts of in regards to questions, or we're not quite sure what to do, then we can actually explore those options together. But I tend to find that I have different ones that I go to for different aspects of my project, and then we come together as a group.
So the number one thing I think I would do is sorting out the literature. So like before having all the literature in either chronological or thematic order, whichever is your preference, in a single location, whether that be EndNote, Zotero, or just print it out into a document. Although printing all of them out, in my experiences, isn't the best, because I've been lugging around a 5-kilogram bag in my first year, so don't do that. Yeah, having everything in one place in some sort of order that you will write your thesis in. So if your thesis will be in, like if it's an experimental thesis, in chronological order, then organize your references and all your materials, your textbooks, your manuals in that order. Just make sure that you have something that, because you'll get to a point where you have 200, 300 references. And so you want to be able to translate between that.
Absolutely be tenacious. And if you fall off the horse, get back on. But practically keep a diary and a journal, even if it's your own scribbles. I've got kind of a leather-bound book that my daughter bought me when I was accepted to do my PhD. And I just sort of scribble in it, put the date, scribble in it. But one thing I do is keep a really accurate diary of my milestone reviews, because they can just come up upon you.
PhD project may be part of an existing research project, or there is already a predetermined research plan. So you need to know your role in the project and what the milestones are, but you do not need to plan it independently. It is good to assign a time frame to several milestones, considering the activities that must start or stop at specific time. At the beginning, you need to plan your research project to make use of most of your time and research opportunities, but you should be flexible to revise the plan quickly if you drop behind your target. When you start planning your thesis proposal, you need to establish the foundation of your research by reading a lot of literature, and then you will be able to refine your direction and come up with some research questions and learn to use the methodologies, resources, and equipment. So you have to make sure you know what you should do each milestone, and then establish clear PhD aims on the basis of the thesis requirements. The goals can change later, but a clear plan can help you to maintain the focus.
That's a great question. I think the most important element of a PhD is the structure. At the end of the day, you can do all of this wonderful research, but the structure that you employ when you're trying to communicate your research on paper is the most important thing. So if you can communicate the structure very, very clearly, when you're trying to take this long-term project into headings and subheadings, just that. I'm not talking about writing, just create a skeletal structure with headings and subheadings of what you think you're going to discuss. That can become a focal point for your meetings with your supervisors really, really early on. And then you've given yourself direction, and makes it much easier when you're writing your proposal.
Well, firstly, be ready to work hard, I think is the first one. Again, be flexible, be open to change, keep a work-life balance where that is at all possible. I think, it's definitely challenging, and, there's definitely a lot of work involved, and sometimes that'll take up your weekends and nights. But I think you do have to try and carve out time for yourself, to just keep that work-life balance. Otherwise, it can get out of control.
And so I've come from a corporate background, and I'm not used to working in universities. So I guess for me, it was about merging my two worlds, and trying to find a middle ground that worked. And I think most importantly, link with a community of practice within Swinburne, or find yourself a buddy, someone that you can confide in, not particularly about your research topic, but about your journey, and share experiences with him or her.
My top tip is to be proactive to build your network. You are going to spend 3 to 4 years at the university, giving you a chance to build partnership with your working professional, other PhD students, or faculty members. They can offer you some suggestion of research trends, potential opportunities for publication, conferences, or workshops. I suggest making yourself known as a colleague. For example, you can create your professional research profile in LinkedIn, Google Scholar, ResearchGate. Also build your professional and social relationship with them. Try to attend and participate in local and international events, speak to the presenter at the seminar, connect with the author that you discover in the literature. And I think this connection may lead you to further opportunities like collaboration, mentorship, or even friendship.
The first year is the hardest because at that stage you feel like you're an imposter. I had no idea what I was doing. The first 6 months in particular is the hardest because you also have that, like I said, if you haven't done any courses, or in my case, I was part-time, you just don't meet people. So the more you make friends and the more you start to get to know what you're doing, you feel less like an imposter.
I think the biggest thing is don't compare yourself to anybody else. Everybody else has different backgrounds, they've done different studies, but the main thing is different projects and where people are on the milestone and the path towards their PhD. I think that don't compare with, it's not comparing apples to apples. And so if it takes one person longer to do their confirmation, or it's at, 14 months and not 9 months, it's okay. That we are all on our own little journey. And I
prepare as much as you can, engage with your supervisors. They'll certainly have a lot of experience in that field about what they're looking for in the presentation. So I think that will really help you a lot. They might also have questions, but a lot of people feel under pressure about that, or what are they going to ask me? What if I can't answer? And I think that's a natural reaction and probably certainly how I felt. But just remember that they're there to help you. So if you don't understand anything, you can certainly ask them to clarify what exactly do they mean. But the other thing to say is make sure you thank them for any suggestion they have. And if you can't answer anything right there in the presentation, you just say, look, that's a really great question. I'll certainly get back to you on that. And there's an opportunity to do that. So, don't feel under enormous pressure. You're naturally going to feel nervous, but the people there listening to your presentation are there to provide guidance and assistance. So I think that's the way you should look at it.
As I said before, ask fellow students if they're happy to share their document with you. I know that sometimes people get a bit, they just get a bit sort of private about it. I have always shared mine because I want to help other students, but it is useful to find some example documents and ask them what happened in the COs. I mean, I was terrified, and then I started asking people what actually happens when you go in there. Start writing your document way in advance, because you will redraft it a dozen times. Know who your panel members are and do some research about them if it's at all possible. And understand that this is a positive experience. Your panel members are there to support you and give you feedback on the best way forwards.
After you preparing your PowerPoint slides, first I suggest reading your slides at least 5 times carefully to make sure that there is no typo mistake, grammatically mistake. And the most important thing is that remember to put all the references in your slide. In your COC, you will share a lot of literature you read and the results from other researchers. Even though COC is an internal review process, but it is quite important to show the panels that you have done proper search by listing all the sources you use to get your information. Another suggestion is that to have a rehearsal with your friends or in a group meeting. Let them ask you some questions based on your presentation. Maybe you do not know how to answer at that moment. It doesn't matter. just write down their questions and then review your slides to see if you can put more information in your slides and get yourself prepared to answer similar questions in your COC, which will be asked by the panel.
So first up, I want to say the COC is the hardest milestone on your PhD. It's not your submission, it wasn't your mid-candidature review, it's your COC. Because at that stage, you really aren't sure of what you're doing. You haven't collected your data, you're not sure if your methodology will fly. It creates a lot of nerves. And I think that's normal. So to get through your COC, I think you've just got to focus on your contribution. Focus and the fact that you can justify it. If you can nail your contribution to knowledge and you can justify the research gap, everything else will fall into place. Your panel will be happy because they know that your methodology might need a tweak. They know that you haven't started analyzing your data. But what they want to know is, have you done enough research to know the literature with confidence, that you've identified a research gap, and that out of that gap, you're asking a question that's worthy of a PhD.
It doesn't have to be perfect, that your main project that you go to your confirmation doesn't necessarily have to be the be all and end all of everything, because that's really an opportunity for external people to listen to your project to say, actually, that's a really good point. Have you thought about doing this or adding in a little bit, the icing on the cake? I think they came up with some really interesting concepts when I went through my confirmation. And also, I think when you're thinking about presenting to external people who don't know your project, instead of being sort of unsure or slightly nervous about talking, sort of flip it on the other side and say, I'm actually really excited to tell people about my project that don't know about my project. And so I really, really enjoyed presenting to them because it was really exciting. They could see my enthusiasm for the project, and actually just being aware that somebody's actually investing in your project, that they're going to be following you through, and actually being able to then explain the project to them. And I also showed them a Lego image of actually my project and my data collection. So they actually really enjoyed that. So that's my data collection, my telehealth at home, and then in the laboratory as well. So I think they really liked my confirmation because I was enthusiastic and things. So I think that's the main thing, to
have a measurable plan for every week and every month. Not necessarily every day. Days can be flexible, but things that as you get to the end of the week, you want to find out what have I missed out on doing this week and what can I do next week? And this might seem really tight on schedule and very inflexible, but it will help you as you get to the deadline. You'll find out you have a lot of free time left because you've been tight on yourself at the start.
Just keep at it. That's my tip. Just be persistent. I think one of the keys for me, don't try and look at it as this big overwhelming thing that you have to do. Just break it into chunks. I'm doing this at this stage. And that way you've got those little goals along the way.
I don't procrastinate. It's very easy to procrastinate. I probably have had 3 months in the last, so I'm a part-time student. I'm almost halfway through. So essentially I've been at it 18 months, full-time equivalent. And I guess there was probably 3 months in that 18 months where I did not do enough because I was procrastinating. Oh, shall I write this? Or, oh, shall I read that? I mean, just do it.
I advise you to spend more time on planning in the first year. Make sure you will devote an appropriate amount of time to the task you are going to undertake, and review how things are going frequently.
Yes, again, I'd say use a project management system. I use Trello. It's free. It has a Kanban board. You can move cards in and around. I use it as a notebook as well. So when I went into meetings, I would take my notes in there. You can have checklists of action items, and it helped when I was going back in my fortnightly meetings to look at that checklist and said, well, have I done what I said I was going to do? And have they done what they said they were going to do? And if they did, then of course, if it were, during those 2 weeks, we'd email back and forth and I knew that they had covered up something or I had covered, I'd just check it off. And then in the meeting, I'd just say, right, we've done these 3 things, but we've got these 4 things still outstanding. And it really, really helped.
For me, so I do a lot of number crunching and stuff like that, but I had no formal training in my undergrad for those skills. And so what I did was I chose the electives that would give me the background, the backbone for what I would be doing. Because often your project is something completely separate from your formal education training. And this is the subjects offered in the grad cert sometimes allow you to flesh out and explore it with some guidance. So in my case, I enrolled in fundamentals of data science because I had very little coding experience back then. And that's helped me just work faster through the number crunching I had to do in my experiments and all that.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the graduate certificate. So the elective units are actually great and cover quite a range of things. So for me, that was useful. I wanted to strengthen, my statistical analysis. So I chose a unit in that. I also have been teaching for a number of years, but I wanted to explore that in a bit more depth. So I was able to take elective units in both those areas, and it was really fantastic.
I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I think it was great to start thinking about the actual why behind your PhD project and actually looking at it from a bigger perspective and then sort of focusing in on your project as well. It was also great to start to listen to other people's presentations and understand how they're doing their projects, because it's always interesting to pick up tips that you can from other people. But also the presenting skills, getting your writing skills, and having that element of being back at uni where something's being graded, but actually just getting into that swing of university and submitting things and actually then discussing your projects and doing the skills behind the project and getting used to pitching your presentation and pitching your project in 5 minutes. So I really enjoyed it.